Okay, so we have 5 minutes past 3, and I'd just like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. I'm Charlene Castle, National Director from Epilepsy South Africa, and with me today is a wonderful colleague and a friend, Professor Jackie Alla. Hi, Jackie, and thank you so much for being with us today. Jackie is Professor, I mentioned it a bit, Head of International Relations, and has been deeply, deeply involved, as you can hear, as a professor in the educational sector. Not only that, is that her son has epilepsy as well. So it really is a lived experience, it's a shared experience, and really a wealth of knowledge. So Jackie, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you, Charlene. It's lovely to be here.
Okay, and with us as well as Jason Fiddler. Is our marketing liaison, and thank you for setting up such a beautiful webinar today. And Jason has been in marketing, I think, his whole life, and it's just so lovely to have you with us, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
From my side, I've had epilepsy since I was a little girl. I was 8 years old, and have truly a long story and many stories to share in regard to my journey with epilepsy. And today our topic is to talk about women and girls with epilepsy and education. And being Women's Month this month, it certainly is an exciting topic to be dealing with, because we know how many women actually have challenges with their education, in the absence of having epilepsy. So this topic for women is a very, very close topic to my heart, and experiences that I've gone through. I'm sure, Jackie, you agree in terms of this regard, and maybe just share some of your experiences.
No, absolutely. Education is challenging enough. When you don't have a disability like epilepsy, and it is even more challenging when you do. I think it's challenging for both the parent and for the learner. And in my experience, it took a very, very long time to figure out what was wrong with my son. Why he seemed to have so much potential and capacity to learn, but he just wasn't learning as he should have. And I think there was also very limited awareness among educators as to what the problems could be, and it took us rather a long time to get a diagnosis. And I think what was really difficult is that when we got a diagnosis, the school that he was at, which was a private school, basically told us, well, he needs to have special education because we can't make accommodation for that. And as an academic now, and as somebody who has studied, has higher education qualifications, not only in international relations but also in education, I didn't even realize as a parent I could push back and go, but we have legislation that says you must accommodate. You need to accommodate, and and you need to educate yourself better on what to do. And I know that Charlene's experience is very, very different, because she had parents that were astute and made sure that there was accommodation.
I think, and Jackie, yeah, you bring it to what I've gone through, and I think so rightly so. I mean, I can share with you that one of the very vivid experiences I had was in matric, when I went into prelims, and I was at that stage well controlled, and I went into prelims, and everybody, naturally you work really hard, you come home, your parents say, so how was that exam, and how was that exam, and how did you find that? And every exam I came back, I was like, oh, I knew so much. My biology, I knew the parts of the heart, I knew the different blood types, the arteries, the veins, and I would go into it because my father was a cardiologist, is a cardiologist, and had taught me so deeply. And after prelims and reports were due, the headmaster called us in and said, "Now, Charlene, how were your prelims?" I said, "They were fantastic." And he pulled out the papers and he said, "Every single one of your papers is blank." And I'd actually had seizures during each of the prelims because of the stress, because of the change of my hormones, that this perfect storm of not enough sleep, of pressure, of really there being little understanding in the school of, this is a young lady with epilepsy, and what can we do to support her through this highly pressurized time where we know thousands of kids do such horrid things during matric. And I then went into finals a little while later, obviously a few months, and of course everyone was now on high alert because of my seizures and because of what had happened. And I walked into the room when my parents were actually holding themselves. Jason, I haven't heard me tell this, and they were crying. And I walked in and I was like, "Oh my word, I failed matric outright." And they were crying because not only had I passed, but I got a university degree entrance against all odds. So it was one of those incredible, incredible moments, Jackie, when it was an aha moment for me that I actually can do this. And I'd really battled through school. And I think it's like you're saying, is that as parents, you understand the pushback. And it's hard because a lot of parents don't, to say to the school, "Listen, this is what we're dealing with." And the reality is there's not a lot of special needs schools, enough special needs schools, or specialized special needs schools, or assisted learning environments for children or young ladies with epilepsy, right?
Yes.
So it's exactly, yeah, just I'm jumping around a bit, Jackie, but you've touched on a few points.
Yes. And I think, one of the areas that I've been very, very interested in is a concept called universal design for learning. And, it's predicated on the idea that if you, in your education, in the way that you design courses and the materials that you populate your courses with, and how you present them and how you assess them, because assessment is very important, because assessment is sort of the sort of linchpin in the whole learning in process. And so we don't talk about assessment of learning anymore. We talk about assessment for learning, because it is a really, really good mechanism to get students excited about learning, giving them feedback and seeing it as developmental. But you need to cater for the outliers on your education spectrum, because if you design your education for inclusion, I mean, then you meet the needs of everybody. And it actually, you create a good, lean, mean, educational system by doing that. And people often go, "Oh no, it's very, very, costly to have individual learning plans." But in doing that, you're optimizing your learning environment, because we know that everybody learns differently.
Mm.
And so by diversifying and catering for different different needs, and also different genders,
Oh,
what engages some doesn't engage others. And so the more inclusive we can be in terms of gender, disability, learning styles, the better the education space is. And and one of the problems in South Africa is that our education spaces are not safe spaces. And we
wow.
know that you know from neuroeducation is that people can't learn if they don't feel safe. And this has a gender dimension and disability dimension. People need to feel psychologically and physically safe in their learning environments. And I know from a parent with a child with epilepsy who has a huge anxiety comorbidity with his epilepsy, that having that safe, constructive space where, you know, you know, learning isn't punitive, it's developmental. We assess to develop and not to punish is so important.
It's so valid, Jackie, to say learning spaces aren't safe. I mean, you start developing, I think, at the best of times. As a person with epilepsy, you almost you develop these self stigmas, right? And we're constantly trying to break stigmas. So a self stigma means I have epilepsy, therefore I can't. I have epilepsy, therefore I shouldn't. I have epilepsy, I need to be quiet about it. I need to behave. I need to, and all these behavior mechanisms start happening. And why? Because in a classroom environment, you feel inadequate because you actually are struggling. Cognitively, when you for example, with epilepsy, often a person with epilepsy needs things to be repeated, not because they're stupid, but because their process speed is slightly slower or slower in regards to, as an example, maths. The cognition of numbers might take longer. It doesn't mean the retention's not there. It doesn't mean anything except an educator making the classroom safe for that student to be included, not special needs, but to take the time and the patience to actually repeat material. Now, we know traditional education, they'll cater for the middle to upper part of the classroom, right? And that's where there's such dropouts, because the middle to the bottom part of the class gets forgotten about, and their kids fail, and you're not good enough, and you fall out of the school, and the school wants 100% matric results, or whatever this case is. But to create an education system like Jackie, like you saying, where children can partake actively in class and be encouraged to thrive. And I think that is a failing of our system. And I think it goes back to very much of, what are we teaching our teachers? Are we teaching our teachers to be embracing and encompassing of unseen disabilities? Or are they also propagating irritability? They just want to move past this. They don't want to deal with this. This is something I don't understand, and I'm fearful. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of education in the classrooms with unseen disabilities. And today we're speaking about specifically epilepsy.
No, exactly. And I think the problem is that because epilepsy is an unseen disability, educators are not very aware of epilepsy, and they may not be aware of how it impacts on learning. And also because of we know that medicine and education responds to girls and boys differently. And so a lot of times when it comes to learning difficulties, the system is designed to identify it in boys, but not to identify it in girls, because it looks different in
Really?
girls. Yeah. And so, it's very, boys, get very quickly diagnosed when they seem to be atypical learners, and, parents get told, go and, have them assessed. We don't think that's right. But for girls, especially, that's quiet and retiring, and, doesn't act out in the way that a boy may act out. That means
Yeah.
that it takes a little bit longer. Um, you know, yeah, and I think that for me, what I also found out, that what you have to become as a parent as well, is that you become your child's advocate, and you're always pushing at something at school, or fighting with somebody at school to get your child what what they need. And when school doesn't really know, then it seems to fall on the parent to come up with solutions, and also to make sure that your child is getting what they what they need. And and
Mm.
sometimes with girls that's really a lot harder, because people take less seriously, because they're diligent and they're hardworking and they try a lot.
Mm.
So they'll get there, don't worry. And they don't get the attention and the time that maybe boys do.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And I think, one of the things we know is that about 50% of young people with epilepsy at school have cognitive impairments. And when we say cognitive impairments, it refers to difficulties with concentration,
Hmm.
um, attention, memory, focus, and those things come with having seizures. I mean, if we talk about, and maybe Jackie, just to stop, just to digress and come back here, is epilepsy. And we've got to remember is it's a heightened electrical current to the brain, and that heightened electrical current, wherever it happens in a particular lobe of the brain, will cause a seizure. And there's different types of seizures. So you can have absent seizures where your whole brain freezes, and that's a seizure, and people around you can notice it. You have petit mal seizures, last 20 to 30 seconds. I have petit mals. And you can have multiples through the day. You can have multiples during the month. You can't actually count them unless somebody really close to you is noticing them all the time. And then focal or grand mal seizures, which is when traditional seizure that everybody will recognize and knows, when you fall down on the floor, your whole body goes stiff, you lose consciousness, your eyes roll, you will potentially urinate, wet yourself. Um, and those are the ones I have too, which are really, really scary. And as an example, I've had grand mal seizures in classrooms and at school, and the teachers freak out. They'll one of the kids start freaking out, and they run out and they run for help, and chaos prevails. So it's actually a case of, in schools as well, is upskilling in any education environment. When I was at varsity, when I knew other people with epilepsy at varsity, I didn't know anyone with epilepsy at school, but that there was no safeness, Jackie, and I use that word again because even if when you were going to have a seizure, whether it was on a sports field or classroom, people didn't know how to manage the seizures. They didn't know what to do. And I remember walking off the court, a story afterwards, years ago later, told to me. When I was walking off the court playing netball, I played goal defense, grabbed the ball, and walked off the court, having a petit mal seizure. And my mother was on the side, pinched me, turned me around, and sent me back to the court. And we had to then teach, she had to then teach everybody what had actually happened. And I wasn't just being a rebel. So yeah, Jackie, I think those are all things that when you look at the compounded results and responses, that how bad our marks are getting and our failure rates in education, it's just a system that is truly failing, and we need to raise more awareness towards education, that women with epilepsy need support.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's also important that, people, have accurate assessments in education environments of, children's capacities, and that just because you have epilepsy doesn't mean that you're not allowed to participate in, certain sports.
Yeah.
That some things may be not recommended, but other things can. And I think that it's really, really important to as a parent, and you can account for this as somebody with epilepsy, is to give people a sense of agency about these are the things that you can make choices about in your life, and you can choose to follow play sport, or what you participate in and what you're not, and that you're not necessarily delicate or fragile or incapable. And yeah, and I think the problem was in the past, we you know we're only now getting a really, really good idea, in education as to how we learn, and how the brain processes information. And we now know that repetition is really, really important. And so this idea of rushing through a curriculum is actually not good for all learners. And so, this idea of maybe you need to repeat and go over and revise. We found that school systems that do this, that teach the basics, that drill the basics, that go over them again and again and again, are systems where students, flourish, and they score in the top percentiles on this, like the reading and the mathematics tests, because everybody is drilled in the fundamentals. And these are education systems that work for a whole range of learners. And and especially with learners that have seizures. Every time you have a seizure, you have a gap in that bit of knowledge. But if the knowledge is being repeated daily, and you revise and you do that, it really is helpful in doing that. And so these things are important.
I like when you say education should just be inclusive, full stop, right?
Yes.
And then it means it is all inclusive, and it means all embracing, that children can be celebrated and girls can be celebrated in the classrooms through what they're going through. And I agree what you said earlier, girls hide. I've always been told that I'm a very good camouflager. And that means that I put a really brave face on and I go, I'm okay 4 days post a major grand mal seizure and about to start a period. And I'm okay. But meantime, I'm so not okay because my system is flying. My system's all over the place. I've had a seizure. My memory's not functioning. My concentration's not working well enough. But there's so much pressure to show up at school and to show up looking decent in my uniform, looking neat, not missing all those school days, because that becomes a whole nother issue with school attendance. And what ends up happening is that you end up almost as a people pleaser.
Yes.
And it propagates a system and a cycle of almost self-sabotage in order to make things okay. And what the consequence of that is that then you are a low-performing student. And 26% of people with epilepsy actually are low performers academically. So it gets even scarier, and you've got to keep questioning why. And it keeps going back to, Jackie, what you're saying about the classrooms and about the need for understanding, the need for embracing, the need for teachers taking care to actually know their students personally as well.
Yes.
And I think it goes both ways. And that another way is that if I look back, I wish I'd had the courage to go to a teacher and say, I'm not okay right now. I'm in my cycle, and I'm feeling this and this and this, and my meds are breaking. So I wish I'd had a teacher I could have spoken to like that.
Yes. So I think that's really important. And I'm now going to talk about my experience as a university lecturer.
Please,
and we have, I have classes, our first year classes, 450 students. These are big classes. And getting to know people individually is difficult, but at a university level, I need my students to have the agency and I encourage them, say, if there is something that affects your performance that I need to know about, please come and see me. Because if I know, and the earlier I know, the more I can do to accommodate you and to help you. And we can work this together. But you have to, you need to make the approach to me. I will keep you in confidence. It's very, very important to tell students that we have a disability unit, that we have counselors on campus, that we have healthcare providers on campus, and that these are all open facilities, open to them to use. But once again, it's you choose to use or you don't use. And so I have two special needs children, one with epilepsy, and he's very good at going to his counseling and seeing his counselor. He's absolutely perfect, and the other one like is not. And
Okay.
so, but once you get to university, the agency is on you. The other thing that
Yeah.
I'm always astounded at about university is how often that's the first time students actually get diagnosis because they have managed to
Exactly.
get through school, being a chameleon like you, especially girls.
Yes.
And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, the extra additional pressure of being in higher education
Yes.
means that their, epilepsy becomes, less easier to control, and less easier, to hide or to gloss over. And all of a sudden you find young people who now have to take serious medication, whose parents don't often always understand what's going on, who people's medicine gets hidden, and it is a difficult time. And I always think um, that is something that really still astounds me, that you've been so good at hiding conditions that you've managed to
Yes.
get to 18, 19, and nobody's realized.
But that's so true, Jackie. I mean, I met a young lady recently, and she'd only almost like just come out, where she had not disclosed because of how badly marginalized and teased she felt she would be, um, by all the people around her. And she was end of matric into first year, into second. I knew her at that space. Um, and it was really took courage because it was affecting her so badly around her surroundings, around her family, around her. But they kept thinking, oh no, she was doing this and she was behaving badly and she was a rebel, and because this and this and this and all sorts of things happened. Um, so yeah, it's really interesting. It's interesting when you listen to the stories and what young people are dealing with. And I think also you put in the context of how we actually live today. And we live fast, we live furiously. And the reality is, and I suppose this applies to a lot of people, is that with epilepsy, we need to slow down. The
Mm,
faster we go, the more mistakes we make. Going back to educationally, more repetition assists looking into that cognitive memory and that short and long term memory bank.
mm,
And the same applies in the ecosystem of life and of engagement in the classroom and studying. You need to slow down, and everyone around you needs to understand that, because the more slow and steady that we go with epilepsy, the more we're able to absorb, because stress starts pushing us up into um, electric currents start in our brain getting heightened and heightened and heightened and triggered. And one of the reasons get triggered really seriously is stress, and the other is sleep deprivation. So you are almost in the education system with the pressure cooker, bound to
mm,
deal with those things. And therefore, as a person with epilepsy, are perpetually at risk of having seizures because of what's going on in the classroom. And with the pressure of having to be educated, having to not enough jobs in South Africa, and all this, what we're dealing with, again, I'm saying that it becomes really, really hard as a person with epilepsy to manage yourself when you're not even given those tools on how to manage yourself.
yeah.
One of the questions that one of the participants today said, what can we as a parent do, Jackie? What can a parent do more to help their child at school? I'll throw that to you because I'm the
Oh,
child and you the
oh,
parent.
oh no,
What do
no,
you
no.
need? What can you do for the school? What do you need? What else would you have liked to have?
I think that it's important that the classroom is a safe space, and
Yeah.
that and it's inclusive, and that I've always been very, very mindful about the aspect of bullying because of somebody who's different. Um, but I think that I found sort of, in a special, special needs schools, there is a lot more, the children are a lot more accepting of each other. And not everybody has the same learning disability. And the children seem to be a lot more accepting, and so that can be a safe space, but your children still need, still interact, outside of the school, and it's really, really important that other children and other people are tolerant, and it's okay to, I sometimes, think to step in and be very, frank and blunt in situations, especially with other children. You don't have to be nasty and just say, but it's okay to say that it's not okay to, to make certain comments about people. That's not okay.
Mm.
Yeah, it just, and it depends. I mean, sometimes, children may comment out of curiosity, but sometimes they comment out of malice. Um, or,
Mm.
because they've picked up certain ideas in sort of the communities they've grown up. And, and it's nice to, use that as a teachable moment to get in and say, hey, no, you need to understand this is, somebody's different to you. It doesn't mean that they're bad or they're stupid or whatever. They're different, just like you're
Mm.
different, and you're not, brilliant at everything. And so, there's got to be tolerance. I also think that it's really important to have an educational environment where diversity in learning is catered for, that content is presented in ways that that are that is easy to consume for for different types of learners. And I think what is amazing about the moment is that there where as when I was at school, everything was you write a test and that's how we assess whether um your work or not. And I have enormous anxiety, and written exams were horrible for me. I didn't sleep. I basically had nervous breakdowns and meltdowns every time I had to, have an exam. I didn't feel that my learning environment was safe. I felt very, very pressured by my teachers to be sort of, a prize performing, like, show animal. And I felt like, if I failed, because everybody expected so much, and I didn't even, that's without any sort of learning, disability. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
anxiety was my learning disability, and we know that anxiety is, comorbid with epilepsy, and
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
it's really important that teachers don't put this kind of pressure on students. And so, what I really like is low stake assessments. So
Mm.
everything doesn't ride on one exam, and that there are
Yeah.
different ways of assessing learning outside of an exam situation. Because we know that,
Mm.
I have a partner that excels at writing. He can sit down for the evening before an exam, go through the whole content and get 70%. He doesn't remember what the exam was about a week later, but he's really good in
Yeah,
that moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he learned. And so there are
absolutely,
different ways of doing
absolutely.
this. Much more
Yeah, and
creative, much more fun for everybody.
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we look at how our education system has changed from that single event, right, Jackie? But there's still so much immersed in our education system of that single event. And when you look now, there's continual assessments in some schools in the
Yes.
IEB scenario, educational system, independent exams board, where the students actually have summative tests and class presentations and group work into end of year exams, and it all is weighted for the year. And that's giving a more inclusive education system where the child can find their strengths. And I think you're so spot on, Jackie, to say anybody can just learn like a parrot for an exam, right? But what is information is actually there? Are you improving and enriching that mind? Or are you just making that person for that moment manage the pressure, manage the test, get through the exam and move on?
Yeah. I mean, so
And
yeah, I think that it's really important that, you find spaces that embrace these kind of ideas. Um, that I think that it's much more fun as an educator to do these kind of things. It's much more fun as a student to do this. I'm still a student, and for my assessment this week, for my Portuguese language class, I had to produce a poster on a specific event. And what a fun way it was to learn, to have to write in Portuguese, and but to do something different. And there was learning in doing that.
yeah,
And so, what a wonderful way to help people who or learn through art, or demonstrate through art,
absolutely.
because you know everything, it's not just mathematicians or scientists that are valuable. Everybody in society, I believe, has something that they can do, and that is valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jackie, as I'm listening to you as well, I'm like, I'm just thinking here, considering and going, so many people say, but we need a school for children or young people that have epilepsy, like especially like we have schools for children with autism, um and I sit back and I always go, a teacher doesn't need to have another 3 or 4 years on top of their teaching degree or HDB to teach children or young or teenagers with epilepsy. They need the understanding of what epilepsy is. They need to know how to cater for it, and it's not difficult. It doesn't take a huge amount of skill, right? It takes
No.
somebody just to go that extra distance of, if this person has a seizure in class, what do I do and how do I manage it? What are my expectations a week or two later of the student? Um, how do I accommodate the need for repetition, the need for not being able to concentrate for a longer period of time, the heightened anxiety, the heightened stress? How do I make it easier for that student to reorientate and get reintroduced to pick up where they left off pre-seizure? And I think people overcomplicate that process in itself, Jackie, because it's not about years and years and years and years of studying like a neurologist does. Um, and I mean, just today, Dr. Vuyiswa Mandita was going to join us, but she had a patient that went into status epilepticus and had to be rushed to ICU. So yeah, so we were actually going to introduce this as well in terms of what does a teacher actually need to know to
Mm,
manage a child with epilepsy, right?
yeah. But I think, basic you know basically, to recognize that, firstly, to a lot of people, I think, still have very, very old-fashioned ideas of what it is,
Yeah,
and how you treat it. Nobody just leaves everybody in the recovery position and lets them, they're not going to hurt themselves. They're not going to swallow their tongue. They're not going to like do anything else to anybody else. Just, let them have the seizure. And get back, and for people within the educational environment to know that this is, it's just a seizure, it's fine.
yeah,
The person
yeah,
will be fine. Nobody has to panic, run around. Everybody just needs to be calm. um
yeah,
and I think that is, everybody, who stands in front of a classroom, should have a basic understanding of what you do in any kind of emergency situation.
yeah,
Because, as a teacher, you are locus parenti, you stand in place of, everybody's, parent. And so, for that
yeah,
time, you assume those roles. And,
yeah,
we have enough health and safety ordinances to tell us that we need to be
yeah,
able to, this should be in place everywhere. And especially with students. I mean, I think every teaching degree has a certain amount of educational psychology in there.
Yeah, it does.
Um, and and that needs to cover these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the comments in the chat was that I'm just going to read it to exactly. And she's fortunate um, that her epilepsy is not, or his epilepsy is not severe, but completely agree that compassionate teachers who are accommodating a special school for epileptics is not necessary. And I do agree there that I'm also grateful for going to a mainstream school because I actually am not going to a special needs school because I had epilepsy, because I actually learned so many coping mechanisms. And I really learned how to apply myself and be resilient and really have to work hard for what I wanted so much. And I wanted nothing more than to have an education that I actually wanted to become a doctor, and I didn't have the marks because I couldn't remember my work. And then I was like, okay, I'll become a physio. And then I had so many more seizures in my trick. So, and then I was so fortunate because I went on to study and I studied amazing degrees and amazing HDPEDs. And today I'm still looking forward to studying more. So I think studying also stretches your mind when you've got epilepsy. It overcomes a lot of the boundaries because you're activating those parts of your brain that you don't want to let rest and not be used, because you are then going to be at more and more risk of Alzheimer's or dementia as you get older. So I don't think education is so key to keeping your mind stimulated through books and through reading. I mean, Jackie, I'm sure you're a professor, live in this most magnificent academic world and just are exposed to so many students. And learning is key to keeping an astute mind.
Oh, absolutely. And, this idea that we have that as you get older, your capacity to learn diminishes. Actually, that's wrong. You are able
Yeah,
to learn for your whole entire life, and learning is a choice. And irrespective of your cognitive abilities or whatever learning disability you have the capacity to learn new things, to learn new skills, throughout your life.
yeah,
And there's nothing that really should stop it. And as you say, it's really, really good for our cognitive health. It stops all kinds of plot developing in our heads. And it helps to keep those neural links, on all those neural pathways, continually to make those connections. Because these things, neural connections, we know, are sort of, use them or lose them, kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
of things. And so every now and then your brain prunes back that hasn't been used. And so we
yeah,
know that at around about 16, 18, what young people, those neurological pathways that have been underdeveloped or not developed, the brain prunes that back, so there's room for more learning. And so if it feels that
yeah.
like a teenager gets dumber, it's because they do, because that, what they haven't used, but it's not like,
So true.
in the sense that it can never come back. Yes, it can come back, but it keeps on needing to be, the brain is a muscle and it needs to be exercised. And
Just
that's
like your arms.
irrespective of what your,
I love that.
how atypical your brain is, and the kinds of things that your brain does. And I
Yeah,
think that, especially women and girls need to often women and girls don't make the time to
yeah,
carry on,
yeah,
stimulating their brains as well. They get
yeah,
busy in, all kinds of the additional work that, like, women and girls do, and carry. And so,
yeah.
it's important to make time for that as well. And I think it's just also really important to, um, you know, to be in spaces and with people that lift you up and lift your learning up and that are encouraging.
Absolutely.
I think, especially for young women and girls,
Mm,
get away from, negativity and people who say that, well, this is
absolutely.
as much as you can do or the best you can do. I think what was heartbreaking for me
Yeah.
in sort of in sort of like special needs education spaces that, you found teachers that reckoned, well, most of you aren't going to go to university, so, just accept that and moving on. And that is the biggest load of rubbish we know.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that
Yeah.
there are exceptional people in business and in sport that have epilepsy, that have other learning disabilities. Yeah, Richard Branson is dyslexic. Um,
Yeah.
but they had the amazing ability to grow up in a system where, in spite of what they had to deal with, they were still capable of flourishing. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I know that, I mean, a lot of these people are the exceptions, but they should be the norms. We
No, I
should
agree
live
with
in
you,
a
Jackie.
society where young girls and women, with epilepsy can fulfill whatever potential they choose to have, and they shouldn't be held back. And we should live in a
Mm.
society with an education system that will support people to go as far as they want to go themselves.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jackie. And I think that is just such a beautiful high note to like just go, that is the message today. Right, right. Let's support people with epilepsy, go as high as they want. Give them the tools that they need to do that with,
Yes,
because you can. You absolutely can. And to all the parents out there, encourage your kids. Tell them that they can. I had parents who just believed so wholeheartedly in me. And it's
yes.
created and given me a life that I'm just so grateful for. So you're absolutely right in that regard, Jackie. So I'd like to say on that note that it has been absolutely wonderful being with all of you today. And I just wanted to say a really big thank you to Professor Jackie Eller for jumping on at short notice with me today and just chatting, having a chat about this wonderful, wonderful topic. And please go on to our website, epilepsy.org.za, go look at the wonderful resources we've got. Share those resources that can change someone's life, and really join us as a member. Just email members at epilepsy.org.za. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to share information with you. So once again, Jackie, thank you so much for today, and I look
Okay.
forward to you joining us again.
Okay, it was lovely being here. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Jason, for doing all the technical magic.
Okay.
Have a great day,
Thanks, Jackie.
everybody.
Take care.
Further.
You too. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.